you guys all know me. Most of you guys know me. And I'm just very happy to bring you guys together. I did my undergrad in computer science. Now I'm studying data science at ASU. I'm hopefully trying to lock in with this idea of spatial computing and probably try to build around it. And I think that the most interesting concepts with it is definitely, I like the more productivity apps. I think that in the like your home space, there's so many things like happening, man. You can be taking care of kids, you can be cooking, you can be actually working from home. There's so many things that happen in your home, right? And how can we make a person's life more productive with the Apple Vision Pros? And then Alan also just joined, so I'll let him briefly. Hey, Alan, what's up?
Morning. How are you?
You're doing pretty good, doing pretty good. We're just doing small intros, so if you want to just intro yourself real quick, nothing crazy, just say kind of who you are, what you're doing right now, and what you're excited about spatial computing.
For sure. Nice to meet everyone here. I know a lot of the people here, but thank you for having me. My name's Alan, currently an undergraduate computer science student here at Arizona State, finishing up this semester, and then heading into the workforce at Microsoft next fall. And then in terms of spatial computing, I know there's a lot of buzz going around everything, especially right now, especially given the launch yesterday. And I think it's the next sort of frontier of how we visualize information, how we interact with each other in the digital space. So excited to hear about this sort of talk.
Yes, perfect, perfect. So we prepared a little presentation, very brief, to kind of go over what spatial computing is, what's the SDK looking like for developers, and what does this actually look like for visionaries and innovators as well. So Bentley, you can go to the next slide and start.
So I'm just curious, does anybody here actually think that the Vision Pro is going to be like a failure? Or does anyone think that it won't?
It depends what you define as winning. It's like I think ultimately when I think about people talking about winning and losing, it's like looking at how did the other devices in the marketplace do,
Mhm.
and then will this device do something different or try to solve problems in a unique way that the other devices weren't able to achieve? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what's the definition.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be a stepping stone towards like I don't envision people like walking into a mall and like 60% of people wearing a Vision Pro headset. Like I don't think that will be a thing. I think it's gonna be very exciting. I think a lot of people will use it at home. I think it's gonna unlock a lot of things we didn't understand before about spatial. But I think it's a stepping stone towards the actual thing that people will adopt, which are eventually the contact lens. But I do think it's a stepping stone towards that kind of technology.
I could see that. I actually got to try on a pair of like the Meta glasses. I don't know if anybody else has tried those, but do y'all know that there's like a speaker in them that plays in your ear and like no one else can hear it, even though it's not like a headphone. Like it basically they function as headphones and a camera. And they're pretty comfortable. Whereas like the Vision Pro, like Talbert, I noticed you're not wearing yours for the meeting, so I'm just
No, I'm gonna show you guys what the Vision Pros look like in
That's not a good look, Talbert.
What'd you say?
I said that's not a good look.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. I know, Zeal, you mentioned that you were like most curious about the possibility of spatial computing for like productivity and kind of more in like a workplace environment. Do you think that there's sort of like a future where like the Meta Ray-Ban glasses are the more like personal product, whereas like Apple Vision Pros or something more substantive is more of a utility or like corporate environment tool?
I feel like the Ray-Ban glasses would be something for like a day-to-day use case, where you could just wear it and walk outside, turn it on, turn it off, as conveniently. But for Vision Pros, I feel like the headsets sort of a product would be more like suited for a certain amount of time, let's say like for certain meetings or certain hours of the day.
And Krutik, I'm curious too, from your perspective, is like a
Yeah,
3D.
I mean, yeah, according to me, I guess like because this is one of a kind device and this is first in the industry to have such computation power, it definitely has a few trade-offs that people are complaining about, but this is a step forward in the right direction. Now that they have feedback from people, they will work on it, and maybe like in next 4 or 5 years, they will overcome the problems that are happening today, and they will sell a product which can be used in more day-to-day life. So I feel like because when we talk in terms of success or failure, they have already exceeded the expectation of sales. I was reading somewhere they have sold about 200,000 to 300,000 pre-order sales already, which is
Wow.
roughly around $700 million. So that response in just pre-order sales is something really crazy. So I feel like people are excited about this technology. It is just that we don't have enough resources or like enough technology to overcome the challenges that it has. But in near future, I guess it will be a little more mainstream. And well, as we were talking about the meta glasses, I mean, as even Snap AR is a thing which has been in the industry for a couple of years. So that is something very similar to the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. So definitely industry is moving towards the smart wearables or like wearables which have spatial computing. So it is definitely going to be a success in the near future.
Gotcha. And something you kind of mentioned too, like the idea of lack of resources. Like, I imagine there's kind of a curve of the success of like revolutionary technologies to like infrastructure for it, like limited apps and like basically like literal limited applications too, in addition to like limited apps on the store. So as like more developers start building tools for like these spatial tools, do you think that they'll become more mainstream as there's just more like infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the product video by MKBHD, which was launched like 2 days ago, and he also said that the basic experiences that one expects, that is YouTube or Netflix or Spotify, is missing from the platform. So
Mhm.
that kind of causes uh, not a bad impression, but like people don't have much to experience on the platform. So there are only a couple of native apps that are supported right now, and the entire iOS native applications. So the point is like if people have something to experience on the app, which becomes a part of their day-to-day life, then people would move more towards using that hardware. Because right now, it is just for entertainment. So something that you would do in your leisure time. But if you have an application on that hardware that can like streamline your day-to-day processes or like workflows, then maybe you would be more motivated to get that and then work on that. So that is something that people are developing and moving forward because I mean, I have been reading about a lot and I have been developing on visionaries myself. So I see like the pattern that people are following, and there are apps in development, but yeah, I mean, the adoption is still slow.
I had this question next of like, what are some situations where a Vision Pro like can't replace screens? But I kind of want to circle back to that, just sort of like on the note that we're at, and move on to like more, I guess, optimistic thinking of like what are some use cases that you all can kind of foresee, like a Vision Pro or a Vision Pro like device sort of optimizing your life. And I've broken it down too into like if you don't have a prompt or an idea right away, like healthcare, education, and entertainment. So like thinking of those situations in your life, like what are ways that you would apply this technology?
Hey, Brinley, actually, before we get into this,
Mhm.
let's I want to show them what we built and then also
Okay.
just show them a little demo of what I have right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so basically, the Apple Vision Pro has you build this persona. So think of it like you're like NBA avatar wannabe kind of person. So don't roast my guy. It looks nothing like me at all. But here I am. Hello, this is me. And this is an actual recording of what I look like in real life on my other screen. So as you can see, my head is completely covered, but it shows your like eyes or tries to get your eyes, tries to get your hair and everything like that. So you still feel a little bit present in those meetings as well. So I thought this is pretty interesting to also show how they're doing Zoom calls. And then what's even cool as well is if I go ahead and if I turn on share, you guys can see a little bit of the windows that we're about to get into of how they do the spatial.
This is really cool, Talbot.
Let me see if I can.
No, I will say VR under is looking really handsome. That's all.
Thank you. I told you, look like me. Okay, it should work in three, two, one. Okay, are you guys able to see my reality?
Yeah.
Okay, Perfect. So as you can see, what I'm looking at right now in real life is actually my laptop. If you can see, if you look to my screen on my camera, this is my laptop, but I connected my Apple Vision Pros to my Mac, and now it's showing the screen of the actual Mac. So that's what I'm like showing the real life view. And then there's the Apple Vision Pro view, which is me looking towards my bed, right? And then let's say I want to add another screen over here. You guys can see, you guys all seen the demos and stuff like that, which I think this is really interesting on how they kind of created this space where you can still see behind you. So everywhere where you guys see black, I can see my actual my actual space. And so what I do want to quickly do is I want to quickly look at just the App Store and what the current status of the App Store is looking like, and where I see a lot of high potential, right? There's not a lot of apps here. I think possibly I wasn't really too in tune when the whole Meta Quest got released and the VR spaces, and I don't know how that App Store was at like the ground zero, but this app store is lacking a lot in their categories and their use cases, right? I mean, there's only 4 apps right here in this category that they made, and there's so many more. They say they have over 600 apps, but it just doesn't necessarily feel like it's the apps that I want or the apps that will like make me feel like I'm being productive or there's enough use cases for me to actually get the Apple Vision Pro. And so with this space that you're looking at right here, this is like a normal plane space. And there's other types of spaces like a 3D space, a fully immersive space. So I'm going to click environments, and then hopefully you guys are able to see. Let's go to Yosemite. Can you guys see my Yosemite view?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually funny, last summer, me, Kevin, and Dan were at the same exact location. And we went up one of these Yosemite mountains too, which was really fun. But I can actually bring you guys into this complete space. If I look back here, it's a little bit black. Everywhere you see black, you can see the actual the real life. But if I turn this dial up, I can fully immerse the whole entire space. And now I'm fully immersed in the Yosemite environment. And I can also hear little crackling Yosemite sounds as well too, which is really cool if I turn the volume up here. Um, but yeah, so that's just a little demo. I'm gonna turn this off and then we can get back to the meeting. And it's also super intuitive. It's super easy. It's not really that hard and finicky. I think we all know Apple I think we all know Apple takes their time when they like build products, and which is really good. And yeah, it feels very natural. I think that if they were right when they said like I kept calling it like, oh, it's just AR, but it really isn't. Like it really is something different, and what they're doing is so amazing. I know I asked if anyone has the Vision Pro, but Eric, did you do the demo of the Vision Pro? So you got to experience it, right? Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yep. So I experienced it yesterday, and been doing some things in the developer space with the emulators, but getting to put the hardware on itself yesterday was a good experience. And similar to what you just described there, I think what's interesting, thinking about the continuum of immersive technologies, augmented reality on one end of the spectrum, virtual reality on the other end of the spectrum. What this device allows is for with that knob to be able to go across the continuum all on one device. And so one moment being able to have that pass through and see the real world in those digital objects, but then to be able to scroll that dial and be able to be fully immersed into another place is something that I think the industry has been looking for quite some time. Versus saying, "Oh, I have to have an AR headset, I have to have a VR headset," but to have one that can go across that continuum is
Mhm.
very unique. But to your point too, one of the things I noticed is like the UI is very smooth and beautiful. Of course, Apple makes really beautiful products, and the thing that also took note of is like all the examples that they share, and even the ones that you shared. A lot of that content is shot on an iPhone, whether it's the 15 Pro for
Yep.
spatial video or just taking a regular panoramic photo. The quality shows up phenomenal, and I think. Uh, like I said, the concepts and the things that you're doing are not new, but doing it with a level of quality and cohesion and synergy within the whole Apple ecosystem is a very powerful thing. And I think that as a result of that, people who traditionally maybe weren't necessarily thinking about getting into the immersive space may now consider it because of the level of quality. And I think sometimes too, just by hype, people are like, well, what can we build, or why isn't our current app now available in this platform? And so one of the things that were mentioned earlier is the fact that a lot of the target demographic, it seems like, okay, is this a consumer device? This is for like really power users, or is this something for enterprise? And Tim Cook said something recently that stuck out to me. He says, well, he considers it to be for both. And so although the marketplace today has like maybe 600 apps, I've noticed just within my community of technologists that I work with over the years, they're just reporting the apps they have for other
Yeah.
platforms now on this platform too. So all
Mhm.
the use cases in education, healthcare, manufacturing, that has already been established and they already purchased it for HoloLens or for Quest or for Magic Leap. Now those same developers are saying, well, hey, let's report this over for this device form factor. So I think that it's going to be a continuation of momentum for those who are already enthusiasts, but also just based on the sales, people who maybe not have been in this space, never put a VR headset on at all, are saying, I want to get into the game.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really interesting. And I think, Eric, if you want to just dive deeper into kind of like your background, maybe a little bit about your time at Microsoft and everything that you've done up to this point, and a little bit about the company that you run right now, just to give people a lot of context of what you do.
Sure. So I'm a creative technologist, founder of a boutique consulting firm called Elevate Coaching and Consulting. And essentially, I focus on change management as it relates to helping leaders, technical decision makers understand like what is the art of the possible with immersive technology holistically. And oftentimes, AR, VR conversations are primarily what's topic for those leaders. But I think I like to take a step back and say like, this technology is cool, and I got introduced to it back in like 2013. I had a mentor that showed me augmented reality for the first time with a mobile phone, and was a part of some of the early pilots with the Oculus device for VR, and then got into some development with the HoloLens 1, and then was a part of the HoloLens 2 team, helping enterprises with that device in particular. So spent a lot of time in cloud computing, but specifically in the hardware aspect of mixed augmented reality. And what I found is that oftentimes people who are innovators or early adopters like to tinker and play around with different ideas. But the ones that have been able to stand the test of time or continue to have value are ones that are associated with a problem that a business or organization has. It's definitely one thing from a entertainment consumer playing games aspect, but then there's also like, well, if I'm going to invest this for productivity or have my team use it or use it in the scenario that you mentioned with Zoom, it's like, well, what unique opportunity does it present that we can't currently do? And how does that impact our bottom line in a positive way? And so I think someone mentioned earlier COVID, that accelerated a lot of initiatives around immersive technology because people wanted a sense of presence. And although we're here on this Zoom call, it's 2D in nature. And if you're interacting with 3D models or something that is 3D in nature, it doesn't really translate well in this format. And so if you're able to have a more immersive way of collaborating on things, I know that manufacturing and construction definitely seen a lot of value of these type of solutions of being able to see what I see, similar to what you did as far as showcasing your view, but more so showcasing your world of saying like, I'm in a plant or I'm in a lab. I want you to be able to see what I see and be able to collaborate and have different perspective on this thing that we're looking at in real time and space is
Mhm.
as a scenario that has been very popular. So that's a little bit about me, some of my experience, but one of the things I want to frame this conversation and others around is, it's great to be able to think about the technology and what app you want to build, but also I think it's important to understand like who's your target audience, what is the problem that you're trying to solve for, and is it adding something net new, or are you just doing the same thing you're doing in 2D just now in 3D?
Thank you. Thank you. No, that was really good, Eric. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you share your screen again? Because I want to recap kind of a little bit more what he was talking about. And I think it was really interesting. I don't know if this is true, but I was in line during the time or during when I was at Apple. the line for Apple to get the Apple Vision Pros, and this one guy said something. I don't know the exact release dates of all the Quest, the Meta Quest, and things of that nature, but they said it actually released. If it would have released a year earlier, because I think one of the Quests released like right after COVID, and because everyone wanted to go outside, it kind of had like a negative impact on it. But if they were released earlier when COVID did was starting up, it would have been way more negative. I don't know. Is that true? Does that ring a bell of something that you guys seen, or am I just yapping?
I think so. I think that releasing a technology like that during what a time that already felt pretty dystopian was gonna like render the public view of that technology to be
Mhm.
similarly dystopian and not necessarily like adding a benefit. I think that's, I was never super apprehensive of like the MetaQuest or anything like that. I was always pretty excited about that stuff. But even in that moment, I was kind of like, it's great, but also is it going to destroy our like in-person realities? Like those thoughts are easy to kind of like fall prey to, especially at a time like that.
I'm gonna finish the slides, Brinley. So let me just do
Oh,
these last two. Okay, so basically what you guys, experienced in the little demo that I showed you, those mostly the things that I was showing you were the window spaces. I didn't yet show you guys like the different volume spaces that it has, but there's a lot of apps that kind of use the volume and they actually act more of like what you would think of as an AR device where it casts a shadow. You can see the different things. I know we've all seen the demos online, what Apple Vision Pro has been releasing. And the next thing I want to talk about are the spaces, right? So these are the fully immersive experience. This is like, I guess, more of a sense of like the VR space. And I think that like the fact that there's three, even what Eric was talking about, I think that this is, yes, completely right. This is something that, the market was in need for. It's something that's very interesting. So I want to take a step back and like talk about, a really big use case that happened. Kevin, you were part of the VR space very, very early on. I know you got connected and tapped into the right people, and you guys were able to do some really successful things. I want you to talk a little bit more about kind of your process of what you went through in the metaverse space.
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned, I kind of got introduced to spatial web design all the way back in high school, in I think about 2016, 2015. But it was just an introduction. It was a class. Our school was adopted by a very successful philanthropist. So we were very lucky for him to teach us about Bitcoin, 3D printing, all that kind of stuff back in 2015, 2016. And now post high school in 2020, that group kind of got back together. We started talking about how spatial web was really growing, how it's going to be the next big thing, and then we started working with commercial clients, right? For example, we worked with a makeup company. The makeup company, they did a lot of in-person demos, and because of COVID, they couldn't go to their houses, they couldn't showcase the makeup. So what we created a fully immersive. Let me take a step back. I have a lot of experience in fully immersive spaces. But I do not have experience in Windows volume, like all that kind of AR stuff, because I work with Meta Quest headsets. So I'm very experienced with fully immersive spaces, and I have a lot of experience in creating them, and just thinking about the art of the possible and that kind of thing. So Wiz Makeup Company came to us and we created a fully immersive space where they were able to showcase their makeup. An avatar was able to join a space that looked like yourself. You were able to try on the makeup. And not just that, once we created that room, they have over 100,000 distributors. So we're able to copy and paste that room so many times. And now they actually hold trainings in those rooms. So that's just one of the examples for commercial clients, right? We also had our real estate companies. Our real estate companies, they wanted their investors to see their buildings, but because of COVID, they couldn't travel and all that. So what we actually did is we took schematics and all that kind of stuff and created a one-to-one replica of buildings, right? Apartment buildings, bedrooms, the pool, all that kind of stuff, so that the owners of the company were able to go into the room virtually, right? We would ship them a headset, we would give them a basic training, and they would actually join the space and be able to see the building, and they would be able to see basically like what they were buying, what they were investing in. And then that kind of happened in 2020. And that's kind of it was like a small team, right, 4 or 5 people, and that's when we kind of noticed like, whoa, like this has tremendous like commercial use cases. And then what is it doing for education, right? We kind of started asking those questions, and it was back when everyone no one knew what spatial was. I think it's so interesting that the Apple is like not even recognizing the word metaverse. And I think that's part because Meta kind of like stole it, right? The metaverse
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just a word that was made up. Meta stole it by naming their company Meta, and that kind of failed, right? The metaverse is like people associate that with like NFTs, like kind of stuff that's like not really like reliable. And I think it's so funny that the Apple is just doing like we're spatial, 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 not meta. When like it's kind of like that word is kind of interchangeable a little bit. But yeah, we kind of started going into the education sector, right? And that's kind of when the company Exponential Destiny was founded, right? For free to check us out, exponentialdestiny.org. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and basically what we do is we go into public school districts and we help them use VR in their classroom, right? Whether that be taking a practice test and making a fully immersive environment where they can go through an amusement park, do different puzzles while they're actually practicing for their test, or whether it be a fully immersive room where students learn about the blue zones, right? I believe 5, 6 blue zones around the world where people live the longest. And the cool thing about these spaces is that we'll go to a school, right? Before we even create this space, we go to a school. We're like, hey, like, what do you need help with? Oh, I'm struggling in math. Cool. So give us a classroom, right, that we can work with. And for a month, for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, we're going to create a room with the students, right? So while we're actually creating a space for the school to use, we're involving students so they can actually learn how to spatial web design, right? And what we do is we do a fully no code design. We use software like spatial.io and Engage VR, which to describe it, right? I'm sure some of you are familiar. For those of you that are not, to describe it in a Web 2 kind of example, I guess it's like the Wix. It's like the Wix of the spatial web, because you start with a white room and you literally like you go to sites like Sketchfab, right? You download assets. If there's not an asset, you go on Blender. That's kind of a little more sophisticated, but you go on Blender, you create an asset. You kind of bring everything into a space and kind of drag it together. And it takes a long time, but you create this space, right? And it's fully no code. So we're actually able to teach these high school students, right, that have been playing Minecraft, Roblox their whole life, which is the same thing, just put on a headset, grab stuff, and put it together. So now they're building immersive environments. They're getting trained as special web designers, and we're creating an asset for their school. So that's kind of what we're doing now as a nonprofit. I actually have a few examples I want to show you guys just so you get an idea of kind of what we do. And again, it's fully immersive spaces. So none of these are really AR compatible.
Are you able to show it with the if we let you share your screen, right?
Yeah, yeah. Can you allow
Okay,
this?
bet.
So the first space I'm going to show is actually a space created for a commercial client. And it was actually for an NFT group. Just so you can see the commercial side, and then after I'll show you the education use case. In this first space, it was actually created with Suman that's on the call here. So we kind of hopped in together and created that room. And it's really cool because when you're building, it's like both of your avatars are in the space. So I'm literally looking at Suman as we're building, like, oh, what do you think this room needs? What should we add? What should we search up? So it's like a really cool creative process. It's Wix, but in the metaverse, right? Or I guess it's in spatial now.
Yeah, spatial is amazing.
Yeah,
Can
spatial.io
you
is
explain?
Yeah.
perfect. So let me see. Cool. We have other environments, right? In Engaged VR. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Engaged. Engage is a lot more complex than spatial, right? So Engage actually is, I would say it's still no coding, but it has a movie-like editor. So you have to like clip things, put them in the timeline. It's still easy to learn, but it's a little bit more complex. But with those, you're able to like go into a room, click a button. So we have a lesson that's like on financial literacy. So it's really like a virtual grocery store, and you're given a basket and you're given some money, and then you go around shopping, and then you got to do your taxes at the end. It's like this really like immersive like kind of game for students to learn their financial literacy. So that's just another example of kind of what we do. Is there any questions on just organization itself, any of the rooms, anything like that?
You mentioned going in the classroom with students. I know working with Spatial.io in the past is primarily you can do a lot in web-based. You mentioned doing it in VR. Is your primary editing posture to be in VR with headsets, being able to edit, or being able to use the 2D with the students as far as the web browser?
Yeah, so when we go inside any school, we donate the headsets to the class. So we make sure every student has a headset. And what we request from the school is make sure every student has a laptop. Because when you're creating these environments, you need to have a headset and you need to have a laptop, right? You have the headset on, you're moving stuff around. You're like, oh wait, I need a tiger. It's not available here in the library. Let me look it up on Sketchfab, download it, and then drag it into the web browser, and it'll appear in the headset. Although now apps like Spatial, they've integrated Sketchfab into their own, so you don't really need the laptop anymore. Which is I know it's the goal. They want to be a standalone kind of like headset device. But with Engage and stuff like that, you definitely still do need a laptop. Yeah, we usually request that students have both of those items. Yeah.
Is there a particular like class that this is associated with? I know that you talked about the scenario with grief or math. Is there like typically a sponsor educator that's saying, "Hey, I'm willing to work with you all to be able to have this level of engagement"? I'm curious what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so it's we don't work with a specific class. Like for example, I think it'd be awesome to always work with a technology class, right? But it doesn't work that way. We kind of we go to the principal comes to us, and then we ask what teacher is interested in having this in their classroom, right? Because if the teacher's not interested, it's not going to work. So sometimes it's art, sometimes it's science, sometimes it's technology. So depending on the teacher, right, the sponsor that's actually interested in doing this, because once we leave, we want the headsets to stay in the classroom. We want them for students to still use them, right, occasionally. So we want to make sure it's a teacher that's actually interested in the actual subject curriculum.
Okay. One last question, because this is
Yeah,
a
of course.
space that I think is interesting as we talk about spatial computing as a whole, is the management aspect. So now that you've given these devices to a school, you have a sponsored teacher that's willing to have them go through the spatial.io. In regards to the Quest 2 or whatever device you've given them, who's responsible for like the updates, the management, all that aspect? And is there some type of training with the handoff? Because I think sometimes working with educators in the past, are like, well, I don't really know how this to incorporate to my lesson. And then if something happens, like, who do I go if it doesn't work?
Yeah. So I think I'm not part of that team, but I think we use something called Arbor XR, which is like we can control every headset that we've ever given away. I'm not too familiar with that, but I know there's a software that they use to do updates, download apps, delete apps, restrict apps, and stuff like that. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
No, I think that was it. I was
Yeah.
wondering, how were you able to who's responsible for managing it once you give it to the students?
Yeah.
So it seems
But
like
it's
you guys are able
definitely
to remotely update
yeah,
it.
it's definitely not easy though. Working with students in schools, it's very, very challenging. It's definitely not easy, but I think what really helps is that most of my team is like really young. So we tell students like, hey, you know what? You don't have to pay attention. But I was sitting in that chair just a few years ago. Like I was in high school just a few years ago. Like trust me, like this will really help you. Like that kind of like gets to them. But it is really hard to deal with schools, right? There's a lot of bureaucracy. A lot of schools have they're kind of like scared of the technology, which is like fine. But I think we've gotten to a point where we built enough of like references, right, and like really show that this is something that's actually going to help schools. And we're not trying to replace textbooks, right? We're not trying to replace all lessons. We just want a supplemental tool that schools can use, right, when students are bored of textbooks every day.
Excellent. No, I'm definitely proud of what you shared. And one last thing I'll mention is that, when we think about this technology, we talked about it before. I think the word is like presence. Like, how are you able to have a sense of presence, and like, why do you show up? And I'm thinking, like, in those spaces, if your peers are there, if you have a level of collaboration, there's a level of motivation, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, of why you want to be in those spaces, which where the learning happens. And so, I think that whenever these experiences are collaborative in nature or have the ability to be shared, it definitely has level of stickiness to it.
Yeah, exactly. And students are something that we didn't realize is that like students, especially in your generations, they're digitally native, right? They're born with an iPad, right? They're playing Roblox their whole life. So when we put them into this environment, we're like thinking like, oh, it's going to be a 3-week boot camp to really get them going and it's like in the first 2 days they're like already like grabbing, dragging stuff, and it's like obviously like they use technology, they play all these games, and they know exactly like what to do once they learn the right steps.
Yep. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing. And I think it's so interesting, just empowering the youth because the youth is the future. And the fact that the future, like the big companies and corporations, like they know where the future's heading. I mean, they invest millions and millions of dollars in figuring this out. And the fact that, you've had a successful nonprofit growing, and I know you didn't talk about it, but you've had a lot of different accolades because of what you're doing for the youth. And it's amazing. And I think that that's why there's so many possibilities and innovations that are going to be starting to come up, definitely from the younger people. But I do want to move forward. We have about like 8 minutes here, so we'll move pretty quickly here. But Brendan, if you want to share your screen, the next part is a little just about like the development side. I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked at the different SDKs or the things that they're offering, or ever used Swift UI or the Reality Kit or AR Kit. I would encourage you guys take a look at those types of things, and seeing if you guys can fiddle around with it. We have Suman in the call too. He's like an excellent designer. He uses a lot of different design tools and a lot of different design kits. We had a couple of designers too, but I would encourage us to try to figure out different things, different assets, as far as like the design aspect goes, because that's the main part when you start building these different spaces. Not only just immersion, but also window space and the 3D space, right? So we can go to the next slide. Next, me and Brinley actually put together this like small little use case for the people who don't have a AR or a Vision Pro headset on how you can actually do still things that can benefit towards the Vision Pro, right? So if you guys want to scan this QR code, basically all it is just a marketplace. I got a lot of DMs when I got the Vision Pro, like, oh my gosh, let me know how it is. Oh dang, I want to try it. I think a lot of people right now with this hype, it's a very special time. And I actually don't know if the QR code is going to work on the phone version. So that'll be interesting to see. So don't look at the phone version. Brinley's about to go to the website right now.
We literally
But
built it last
basically,
night. So.
yeah, we built it literally last night. We were up like all night trying to build it. But basically what it is it's like trying to bring the Apple Vision Pro to the desktop, and how that looks and how that feels. And so basically it's just like the same type of UI feel and the same apps we wanted to put in, but instead of like using the apps, you can see different reviews, different use cases. You can like put in your specific use case, um, and like be like, hey, like I'm a educator, trying to learn like different education things, and it'll let you know what's on the actual live Apple Store, um, that now, and how that can like apply to your use case, right? So we're really trying to get people invested without having to make that investment, right? Because we all know it's super expensive, and people will be like, well, there's probably no apps on it, there's probably not this on it yet, but now they have an opportunity to search and feel how it will feel, with the apps that they want. So I do encourage you guys all, can you actually copy the link to this website? And I need everyone to go to this website and make an account real quick.
Yeah, I say it's asking about authentication, so I should make an account first in order to see it.
Yes. Make
Yeah.
an account, log in. We're also going to open this into an open source project. So we really want to blow this platform up as like a staple of kind of
Like the direction we want to go with it too, like right now we want it to be like a faux Vision Pro app store, but we want to add like a community element to it where people can read reviews and discuss things like the things that Talbert's friends have been asking him, like, is this worth it? Like, what is this like? Like, what kind of use case? So like it's obviously a huge step into the future, and there's a lot of people that are like in the
Mm.
2D realm still, and then they kind of want information from the people in the 3D realm. So we want it to be like a recreation of the App Store for the 2D, just like a web app, very easy to access, but like have all of those kind of like community boards and have the creators of apps be able to, write things on their app page and stuff like that. So we have a lot of ideas for the project, and we wanted to share it with all of you because like we think that, if you're interested in being involved, like we said, we're gonna open source a lot of the development. So
Yeah, and so we don't want this. This is like you guys are literally just all my good friends. And I was like, let's just bring you guys all together and see what happens. I think that in these meetings, I do want to output something from this, right? We're super bright people. We're super talented. We should be producing, not consuming. And so I think part of this is like, that's why I wanted to like get a staple of like, okay, this is going to be like a project that we could all work on together. We all have different creative ideas, and we can all just input our ideas on how to make this simple platform better. Or let's say there was someone in this meeting, you guys want to collaborate and build something, please build something because I think that that's super important. And we're actually going to be trying to do these meetings like every month or every week. We'll give more information about this, but we want to really build this out into like a think tank and get like hundreds of people and build a community, right? Because now, guess what's going to happen when you guys do decide to build your product? You guys have a community behind you to kind of help you bootstrap the virality of it and give you more validation, right? And so at the same time, we're going to be building stuff, we're going to be building community, we're going to be ideating stuff, moonshotting stuff. And I wanted the people that I invited here to be kind of like the core team of that. I know we all have our own different things that we're working on in life. Some people will be able to commit more time than other, and that's completely fine. This is supposed to be low effort for you guys, and you guys can just like, oh, I wonder what or Vision Pro's hyping up. I'm a part of this group. Let's see if someone wants to work on something today, or let me do a GitHub report. Let me design something. Let's see if we can put this in Vision Pro. Let's see if this is real. Let's go on a Fig Jam and ideate some more and brainstorm. Let's make policy research paper, whatever that might be. I think it'll be super exciting and super fun. So I encourage you guys to like invite your friends. I'll send out like a follow-up email or anything.
I guess I just have one last thing to mention to the group.
Yes, sure.
So I started using the Meta Quest headset when it first came out, and something that will happen with the Vision Pro is we're gonna have all these great ideas, right? Just like my team did, but those great ideas will be done, right, sooner or later. So I think we have about 6 months to really create something. Anyone that wants to create something, there's a 6 month window. Because after those 6 months, the market will be way too saturated. There's going to be way too many products, and your idea will probably be done already. And not just that, after like Apple is a big brand, right? Meta, Facebook is a big brand, but I would say Apple has more diehard fans, right? So all these people that never cared about spatial are like buying these things now, and in 6 months they're people in 6 months only the commercial you send and for example like actual creators and people that were really interested will keep using it, but I would say most consumers will not be really using them in a while. So I think we have about a 6 month window to really create something. So kind of just wanted to share that.
Perfect. I like deadlines that will keep us like engaged. So I think, yeah, 6 months. I think you're right, Kevin, 100%. And so like take that, think about it, think about what we talked about today. Like I said, the meeting was recorded, so everything that we talked about, you guys will be able to see it. But yeah, I just want to keep this super just casual and chill and just get some cool people, cool, smart people together. And hopefully we can like just grow this thing, grow our different ideas and really start, I don't know, making money, making change. Um, but yeah, we also are going to be doing an ideating session too after this. So if you guys want to stay on, we're just going to go to a fig jam and me and Brenly are going to just be going through some like different use cases and trying to figure out different ideas. So if you guys have more time, you can hop in and out that whenever. We're just going to start that. But I just want to say thank you, everyone. And yeah, just have a good weekend.